Well, welcome back to Winn Tucson. We are going to go from flight to business. And Chad, welcome to the show and to a new congressional session. I think you guys are pretty busy already, correct?
Well, thanks a lot, Kathleen, and good morning to you. Appreciate being on your show. Yes, the state legislative session is off and running in Arizona. Today is the 31st day of the state legislative session in Phoenix. And
so what, and I guess that's really primarily where your work is, based on the election and what happened, what are you hoping to get accomplished this legislative session?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, and we are at a new point in Arizona, one that we haven't been in quite a few years. So first, for your viewers, NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business, we're the voice of small business at the state capitol in Phoenix and in every one of the 50 states and in Washington, D.C. But when we look at Arizona, this last election brought a lot of newcomers and some returning lawmakers who had taken a break from their service. So we have 90 lawmakers in Arizona in the legislature, and we're at about 40 that are new or returning from a break. So from an education perspective, a lot is needed with the new members, just so they understand the issues, understand the process within the legislature, and just literally understanding the legislative branch and where their office is and how things kind of operate internally. So we're off to a little slower start this legislative session because of all that.
Yes, and to my listeners, we're talking to NFIB State Director Chad Heinrich, and there are two bills that have Senate Bill 1276 and Senate Bill 1236, and these are to bring tax relief for Arizona job creators and focused on small business. Can you talk about the significance or importance of these bills?
Oh, I'd be happy to, Kathleen. Yes. So Senate Bill 1263 and Senate Bill 1276 are both sponsored by Senator J.D. Mesnard from Chandler.
Yep.
And Senate Bill 1263, what that would do is that would actually eliminate what's called the business personal property tax in Arizona. When we think back to the last election in November, voters passed Proposition 130. And what that did is that amended the state constitution and now allows the legislature the flexibility it needs to be able to address this onerous tax. I think we're one of 11 states that actually taxes business personal property. And so this is a very onerous tax for businesses because they have to track things like desks within their offices, shelving if you're running a retail location. Basically anything inside your business building, you have to estimate the value of that, report that to the county, and then if you exceed what is a current threshold, a cap, then you have to pay property taxes on that property. So frankly, for a lot of our small business members, the accounting and the process of just tracking this, it literally costs more than the tax that they end up owing.
And the tax itself is especially at this time with inflation, with cost of goods, with workforce issues, this is just another way to complicate a small business operations. And how long have we had that kind of onerous tax on our small businesses, Chad?
Well, this has been in place for quite a long time. The exemption has been in place for several decades and does increase with inflation. So that is helpful for the smallest of small businesses. But as I had mentioned, this is a tax that a lot of small businesses probably end up paying more to their accountant just to track this and do the filing. than they're actually paying in the tax, because the exemption is over $200,000 this year, but that doesn't mean you have to track it, right? You have to know if you're under that exemption. So there's a lot of accounting that goes behind it, and there is a lot of I would say leakage within this kind of system, because I know a lot of businesses that don't even know that they are responsible for paying this. So one business on one side of the street may be reporting it and paying it, and a competitor across the street may not know about it, may not be reporting it. So there's a lot of inequity built into the system as well.
Well, and it seems to me that exactly to that point, that how do you monitor this, and how do you know if someone got rid of a desk or bought a new desk or a shelf, or I mean, how do you even you might have a good, honest business and member of NFIB, I'm sure, and maybe someone across the street is not. And as you point out, if they're competitors, what is the regulatory agency that takes care of this? Is this the Arizona Tax Authority, or who deals with this?
Yeah, the individual counties deal with this just like they would for real property taxes. So like property taxes on your land. But yes, the issue there is that it's practically impossible for the county to know this. In another example, you could have two businesses that from the exterior look exactly the same, but one business may be filled with $1 million worth of manufacturing equipment. Yeah, and the similar business across the street could be a warehouse and have zero business personal property in it. So from a pragmatic perspective, it's practically impossible for the county to know where the property is unless it's reported, and that also leads to the inequities in the system.
How much revenue are we talking about for the different counties? Do we know what this is generating annually?
It generates a little bit, but not much. I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but it is several $1 million across the entire state, but it equates to less than 5% of the total property tax collections in the entire state.
But then you have to pay staff, and you have to, I mean, when you figure what you're getting in for this, it may just be an offset. If you look at salaries, retirement, depending on who's regulating this. So it is not really maybe accomplishing what it's supposed to be doing, and why we put it in place to begin with. So SB 1276, can you, because that's about depreciation, correct?
Yeah, it has a depreciation component in there, but the most important piece is that it accelerates reductions in what are called the commercial property assessment ratio that the legislature has previously adopted. So here's another example of a great inequity in our property tax system. If you have a $100,000 house on one side of the street, and you have a $100,000 business property on the opposite side of the street, looking at those from the numbers, you would think that they are paying an equal amount of property tax, right?
Yes.
Well, that's not the case in Arizona. We're actually one of few states that the legislature within state law chooses to shift more of the property tax burden onto businesses. So in my example, the business would be paying roughly 50 to 60% more in property taxes than a similarly valued residential home. And so what this is really doing, this Senate Bill 1276, is simply accelerating a reduction in that assessment ratio that has already been passed by the legislature. And so we are in support of that to provide quicker relief to our property taxpayers.
And do we know where the governor's office is on whether she will sign the bill or not?
We do not know. That is another part of the evolution in Arizona. where we're now working within a shared government situation where the first time in 14 years we have a Democrat governor and we have Republican majorities in both the House and Senate. So these I expect will be a couple test cases for our governor to see if she does stand with small business.